Tell me why.
Ain't nothing but a mistake.
Tell me why.
I never want to hear you say it.
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan here.
And this is episode 441. And the question of the week is, which video game villain deserves to star in their own game?
I'm going to steal your answer.
You don't know my answer.
You're going to steal my...
No, he does know my answer.
I might know your answer based on our
recent conversation.
Expansion pack episode. It's going to be Dutch from Red Dead 2.
Ding, 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 ding,
And
ding,
Red
ding,
Dead
ding.
Was that your answer?
That was an answer,
Yeah.
but yeah. And it's the answer.
I'm with you. I want to see him as the main character starting out without the gang, without the troop that he travels with,
Absolutely.
and building his reputation. And
The Vanderling gang.
yeah, man. I think it would do numbers for the company, first of all, because everyone loves that character. And he's just a complex kind of villain. He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
I mean,
he
was a good guy.
I'm fascinated by villains, often honestly more than heroes. They are often much more nuanced and varied, and yeah. So, but also I grew up with like one of my formative villains being Sephiroth. So like I kind of had it set up for me well. Kenny, let me go so that you don't accidentally take mine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mine's a simple one, but it is a serious one, and I'm probably going to be told that I'm missing something, but Donkey Kong has games. Wario has games. Why in the world does Bowser not star in any of his own games?
Well, it's not called Donkey Kong a villain.
It's a...
He started by throwing barrels at the bro.
Mario might be the villain for all we know.
Oh.
Okay. That's not the rabbit hole we need to go down. I will agree with you, Dustin.
But also...
Does he not?
The real question is, why haven't they? That's absurd.
There's
I
no
don't know
way.
either. I don't know if they're respecting him as the big bad guy and like trying to be purist, but like Wario works, Waluigi works. Like, it's Nintendo. If they decided to do it,
It'd be amazing.
they could figure out a way to do it and do it
Why would they?
really well.
They've even got it set up. Why would they not have a tower defense game with Bowser at the helm? Like, does that not just make sense?
That's a fun idea.
Like,
That
what?
is weird. I just Googled it because I was like, he's wrong for sure. There are games where he's playable, but not it's not a
where
Bowser
he
game.
is,
Isn't that
like,
crazy?
the
That's
person.
crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
So,
Nintendo.
yeah, I know
Wake up.
Bowser Nintendo is basic, but like, why? Like, that is like the obvious one, I feel.
They're listening to our podcast right now.
Okay.
So in
Nintendo.
in 3.5 to 5 or 7 years, we'll get a Bowser game. And when that happens, everyone can play back this clip and go, they were the inspiration.
And we'll get royalties.
Who royalties on royalties inside
I
my
don't
DNA.
think that's how it works.
Kenny, what is yours?
Yeah, so I also am going to not dig deep because we just had the conversation about villains on our bonus episode. Super interesting. Go check that out if you haven't listened to an expansion pack episode yet. But I'll also just steal one of my villains from that, but with a little twist. I'm going to say GLaDOS could actually be a kind of interesting main character. And I know that sounds like, what in the world? That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Can't move.
Here's what you need to
A
picture.
platformer.
No, you need to picture
Point click.
a game more like Mario Maker.
Okay.
But what you're doing is you're designing levels for people to have to escape from, and then other people play them. And it's like
Let them cook.
Wait a minute.
challenge mode of like interesting Portal custom levels that people make.
Actually cooking?
Why should Kenny have been a game developer? And
he still could.
Instead, he's spending his life recording a podcast.
Not too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disagree with that, actually.
You had a good argument, Kenny. I'm for you.
I didn't have the vision.
It's the first time I maybe have ever changed you guys' minds.
Yeah,
More I've talked.
I think so.
Both of you have already mentioned it, so I will be the third, but I chose this question of the week on purpose because we just released our second bonus episode on the NGP expansion pack where we chatted with our listeners about the best video game villain. We have a different topic each and every month chosen by our partners, and you can listen to us by supporting us on Patreon at any dollar amount. NGPpodcast.com will get you there, but also patreon.com/NGPpodcast. And for as little as $5 a month, you can get access to that, our Patreon polls. So much content is waiting there for you, so check it out. Those were our submissions for cool villains that deserve the spotlight. ... Specifically red ... Like in our retro game of the week.
I'll sing it too.
Don't, yeah. Singing it just makes it worse.
Spot goes to Hollywood.
Overview.
Spot Goes to Hollywood should have been called Cool Spot Gets Stuck in Hollywood.
Why?
Don't know. Nobody knows who Spot is because that's not... Isn't his literal
dog.
name Cool Spot?
Yeah.
No, cool was just an adjective to describe him in the first game.
His name's Cool
I
Spot.
hope that's not true because Spot is a terrible mascot name. Cool Spot is a much better mascot name, and I stand by that opinion regardless of how true it is.
His name is just
Either way.
Spot, and they say he's a red-orange dot, which is absurd because it's
Red,
just straight red.
Orange.
He's clearly red.
They say red-orange.
That's because in the 7-Up official branding, that's the color they use is red
Wait.
orange.
Also,
It's a legal.
he
term.
became the mascot in 1987.
Yeah.
Dang.
We talked about this a little bit on the Cool Spot episode, episode 239 that
Okay.
we recorded in the year 2020.
Okay.
The Fido Dido was the mascot in international areas from the 80s through the 90s. And only, I think, we maybe in the States, across the U.S. got the spot.
Why does this soft drink need a mascot?
Ooh,
It
everyone was
doesn't.
doing mascots
Coca-Cola.
back then. But
The polar
Pepsi Man,
bear is not the mascot.
there was Pepsi Man, there
Pepsi-
was...
Yeah.
There was the Domino's Yo-Noid.
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 Which is bad. Which I think he's just the Noid. The game is called
The
Yo-Noid.
Noid,
Kind of
yeah.
like Cool Spot. We're back. We're back.
Okay, full circle.
Nice. Like the orange-red spot.
Yeah, he's a terrible color, a terrible name, apparently. Although when we played Cool Spot so many years ago,
Yeah.
I actually gave that game my vote for New Game Plus status for some reason.
You were the only one.
I was the only one. Different game, though. Let's talk about that because Spot Goes to Hollywood is also a platformer, but this game is a isometric view platformer.
Yeah,
So
boy.
feels and
Those two things
looks-
that work really well together.
Yeah, feels and looks very, very different from the typical sort of 2D side-scrolling platformer of the original Cool Spot. This game was developed by Eurocom and published by Virgin Interactive Entertainment.
By
we
the
played
way, that developer
Yes.
made the Jungle Book for the Genesis, and I
Versions?
loved that game. I actually owned that
Oh.
one.
Oh, that's the publisher.
And what? No,
we-
Eurocom made the Jungle Books.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had thought you were talking about Virgin Interactive at first. Eurocom made a few things. Earthworm Jim, or at least some of the versions
ports,
of
yeah,
Earthworm
to the
Jim.
Game Boy.
Interesting.
Are they one of those port-heavy developers?
It was kind of a mix. I read through it, and they did one of the versions of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, but like not the main release. But then like this game and then Jungle Book, they were the main developers for, so it was kind of
interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, we played the Genesis version of this game this week. And again, it goes without saying, but you are playing as the titular 7-Up soft drink character, and like I implied when I said the name should have been different, the plot is basically that the Spot, I'll settle, I hate it though, has gotten like sucked into a like movie projector that is playing some films while he's in Hollywood, and now he's got to find his way out to, I don't know, save the day, to live, to go on to brand more 7-Up sodas. No one really knows what's at stake here. The way you do that is by collecting a certain number of spots. So you are the person, and you're looking for more non-sentient versions of yourself and collecting them. Depending on which difficulty you play on, there's a threshold for how many of those spots per level you need to find to progress. And he's wearing sunglasses because that's who he is.
That's the thing to end.
Actually, I'm glad you ended there, although you sounded bored while you were talking about it, which I can't imagine that would make listeners want to listen. But I wanted to talk about Spot being cool or not, because I need to repent to you, to God, and to everyone that listens to this podcast. Because on that last episode of Cool Spot, I degraded the character and the person.
Really?
Nolan and I did.
Kenny don't say
yes,
that.
you sir. Yes, sir.
Don't say that.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't there.
Kenny defended the character and integrity of this young red man.
Is he young?
He is so cool. I don't know why. I was probably jealous, but please forgive me, everybody, particularly Mr. Spot, because I think the best thing that 7-Up has going for it is this guy.
He's cool.
No, he's super cool.
He's got
and
sneakers
in like an
on
old
and stuff. He's cool.
like an
sunglasses.
old school retro kind of way. I know like that era of like stuff was before your time, but there was a special level of cool that came with characters like this and with like the California Raisins.
You brought them up last time.
It's because it's the same vibe and happened in exactly the same era.
Part 2.
It's that just it works, and I don't know.
Am I tripping?
Dustin has 80s nostalgia, but I don't blame him.
Am I tripping, or does this not have any reference to 7-Up at all?
Ooh, I'm glad you brought it up. There are 2 references to 7-Up. Okay. They stripped this game entirely of 7-Up references for some reason.
Which is strange to me, because I'm already shocked that there's a sequel to Cool Spot, which is an ad for a soft drink. But then they make a sequel, but it's no longer an ad. We're going to make a series out of it.
Yeah.
The last one, it was so heavy-handed, too.
Yeah.
Like, you'd run around and literally, like, there'd be a giant 7-Up, like, on the screen, huge and, like, spinning, and you had to, like, collect it as one of your collectibles.
Cool.
In
this one, too cool. They had to keep going.
In this one, there were 2 references. One is on the copyright screen, and then one you can kind of see when you're selecting the level. You know how there's the desk and you've got the paper on it? You've got a can of 7-Up, but you're looking at it from above, so you can barely make out that it's a can of 7-Up.
The cup of coffee next to it is, like, even more prominent than the can of 7-Up. So, I don't know. It's pretty subtle.
I think they were trying to break away from 7-Up and make Spot just kind of his own thing.
He deserves that, at least. He's not an ad.
I mean, he does. I don't know. He's an interesting character. Like, he'd be really easy to write and just, like, come off kind of flat. But you give him enough depth, then maybe.
We now have a bonus episode exclusive for those on Patreon.
Episode is not an over-exaggeration. It's a full episode.
And it's an episode that you get to be a part of.
Yeah, it's called Expansion Pack, and semi-regularly you get to be a part of the conversation, and we're going to debate, and we're going to scream at each other.
We're going to talk about video games. Yeah, we're going to scream mostly, though. That's kind of the point of it.
It'll be like goats.
You roast us, we roast you. Find out more information at patreon.com/NGP podcast.
Gameplay.
This is completely different than the first game. You already mentioned it, but no, it is because
completely is a little bit crazy.
It is a strong word, but I understand where he's coming from.
You've already mentioned it, but we've gone from 2D platforming to full isometric platformer. Genuinely curious why they went that route. Maybe because they were thinking ahead to the PS1 and Saturn ports that would eventually come out. And I don't know, but it had to be because on paper, 2D platformer is good. Isometric platformer equals bad. Like,
you must have never played Light Crusader.
I played Light Crusader.
There are exceptions to that rule, but it's a fair general statement to make.
There's probably one exception to that rule.
No, I'm with y'all. Look, I'm already platforming is not my best genre performance-wise. Put me in an isometric world, even less so, and then take away my ability to control freely my character, and we're in a lot of trouble. But that's me. Kenny, how does it work in your world?
I'm great at platformers.
Especially isometric platformers?
Especially isometric platformers, and control schemes that are slightly atypical don't befuddle me at all.
If you'd like to see a guy for 12 minutes struggle with the up on the D-pad, this would be the first play to go and watch.
I didn't get through the first level, so it was one of those. In my defense, let me describe how the controls work here, because it is certainly something you can get used to, but it's pretty wonky. You're at an isometric view, so everything is sort of happening on this kind of 45-degree angle, and your orientation of your D-pad is based on that instead of based on the screen or your character or his orientation to where he's even facing at any time. So if you ever want to go up and to the right, you press the up button. If you want to go up and to the left, you press the left button.
And that's why your brain couldn't figure it out. Because the way that you're describing it.
That's exactly how it works. If you
want to go forward, press up. If you want to go backwards, press down. If you want to go
in relation to what angle? His perspective
would be in front
or yours?
of your character.
Not your perspective. In cool spots. Excuse me.
Yeah, but that's not how. That's not how.
Correct.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, that is how it works.
I don't put myself into the POV of the character I'm playing.
Right. Y'all are saying two different things.
Once you turn. Then going forward doesn't move him forward.
Forward being up.
Forward towards the end of the stage. The stages are angled in a particular direction.
Right.
And if you want to go forward towards the end of the stage, you press forward. Listen, I agree with you that it's absurd.
No, here's your problem. You've read
My
Ender's
problem.
Game.
Your problem.
You've read Ender's Game too many times.
The enemy's gate is
the
down.
Enemy's gate is not up and to the right.
Yes.
At the end of this level, and that justifies this perspective. No, it's like it should either orient around the orientation of the character, or it should orient based on what your view is of the screen. The fact that the up arrow moves you towards the end of the level, but that is a 45-degree angle on your screen, and that everything stays relative to that is nonsense, especially when there are platforming elements all the time that make you walk on specific, very thin elements of the screen. At least all of those are done on exact 45-degree angles, so that as long as you push the correct button, once you kind of get there, it's not too bad. All of that to say, this is a nonsense control scheme. It's got me flustered even talking about it.
I'll agree with you, but after like 10 seconds, you should be able to understand what's going on.
Adjust.
I don't know if 10 seconds. It does take. No, look, I am completely for your first few minutes being what is
super awkward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I brought up the correction, which I still think my correction is valuable and viable, is because if someone continues to think of it in the way that you're describing it, their brain is never going to make sense of how to control this character. But if you think of it like I'm trying to describe it, then you'll make sense of it. It's not going to necessarily become much easier because isometric platforming, one, and then two, you are not using your thumb on the D-pad like you typically would on a platformer, or at least I found myself not doing that. I instead am simply pressing those buttons. Usually it's more of a fluid movement, right? Because you've got control of your character.
It's because you were confused and it felt so foreign. Here's what you should do.
Not let go.
You should take your controller.
He's offended.
You should
And
take
turn
your
it
controller,
45
you should
degrees!
Turn it 45 degrees, and you should play it like this.
He probably
with your
did.
He
thumb
actually
on
probably
the,
did, which
like,
he
up
probably
and down.
did.
That's
It
even
would
crazier
make
than
it
them
make
making the controls
so
that
much more sense
He probably did.
for the layout.
But here's where the bigger issue. Once let's say you do get control of the controls and you understand what's going on.
Ooh, nice.
Isometric platforming means you do have to line up things really, really precisely, and maybe not even precisely, but from our perspective, it's impossible to tell depth. And so you are thinking you're lining something up and you're way off. But not only that, you're shooting in this game. You have a shoot button. I don't know what you're shooting, by the way.
We discovered it last time.
What was it?
Is it
Bubbles?
Is it bubbles?
It's bubbles.
Like
Kenny
carbonation?
carbonation. Kenny in the last episode called it fizzy pop because he's 80. But yeah, carbonation.
Yeah. You're shooting fizzies.
You're shooting fizzy pop balls at enemies. And when I tell you I spent literally probably 2 straight minutes, even on the first stage, trying to line up a shot to kill something that was like flying around like a bird.
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating at all. The hurt boxes are like very tiny, and they're super particular about like how they like where you hit things, and then where you jump on things. There's no getting used to it.
What makes it even more difficult is that the where you can hit these enemies is very particular. So, Kenny, you gave up on that crab in the first play. Hopefully you figured out later in the week, but you have to hit certain enemies straight on, but that also puts you in their firing range. Thankfully there is a different hit sound when you're hitting them successfully rather than when you're hitting it from the back or something. But if you are tossing your carbonation fizz at their face, different sound, but lining that up successfully while the enemy is moving, while you're trying to avoid being hit, while you're in an isometric environment is near impossible.
Right. Well, and on top of all of that, you got to fizzy pop them like 14 times each.
I don't want to talk about the first boss yet because we're not there because we haven't even described anything. Can we?
No, and I'm not even talking about the bosses.
We described the movement.
Right. We're moving around, we're platforming, and we're shooting stuff.
Yes.
These are all basic things to describe. And one of my complaints is that these enemies take so many hits.
Just wait until the boss. They take triple
I spent 2 minutes trying to clear like a simple enemy in order to collect.
But
But
yes,
a boss kind of should.
Okay, but a normal enemy, the crab that I just referenced, 10 bubble pops to kill. 10.
Right.
10 on a normie enemy on the stage, completely slowing momentum. We're going to really love this game, you can tell already. So completely trashes the momentum, completely thankfully, you have a life bar, so you can take more than one hit. It's not insta kill, and it's a little bit not forgiving, but like you've got a good amount to begin with. The unfortunate thing is, although there are a few items that will replenish some health, they are far and few in between, and you might not even know you picked them up. So it's just everything's a sponge, and you're going to die a lot. Like, it's not easy.
And it's not like they throw a million enemies at you. It's just that the few that they do take forever to kill, and they're guarding, like,
the things you need.
Yeah, like...
Which, okay, there. This first world, to give you an example, you've got 3 selectable stages, and you can do them in whatever order you would like to.
3 different movie genres.
No.
I mean, it's one genre per
No, I mean,
page.
like, throughout the game.
Yes. There's you start with the pirate movie, I guess, and then you'll go into the horror movie, and then you go into maybe
like
an adventure
Indiana
movie,
Jones
a sci-fi
style
movie.
Adventure kind of.
First one though,
And then I think sci-fi, right?
first one, pirate movie, and you've got 3 different pirate themed stages. One is on top of a deck, a ship deck, one is underneath, and one is in the ocean, in the sea, in the water. Right, you're actually swimming around,
like underwater. Yeah, it's a water level.
But you're doing the same thing on each stage, which you are collecting spots. The same thing that you did in the first game, but here's where the difference is. In the first game, you had to collect a lot of spots, and they were all over the place so that you could free. Actually, I'll call them dots and spots. Spots are sentient. Dots are dumb. You collect dots to unlock the spot, your spot friend that is imprisoned in the first game. In this game, you're doing the same thing, but rather than collecting a lot of dots, you are collecting, on my mode, 60% of the dots on the stage, which is not much. Like, I think on the first few stages, it's 6 or so, but they are not plentiful. They are spread out. Yeah. The stages are much larger, and it is difficult. It's extremely difficult to find all 100%.
Oh, yeah.
But it's very difficult to find the 60% you need to pass the stage.
Those last few dots that are the difference between beating the game on normal level versus full clearing the game, which apparently gives you some kind of bonus ending or something. I heard that.
True ending.
Well, I will never find out.
The true 7-Up ending.
Yeah. Is wildly different because some of these are hidden really, really well.
Don't what? Really? What?
Well, they're hidden in ways that are very difficult to find.
There you go.
Yeah, if the goal was to hide them, not to make an interesting or fun game, then they're hidden well.
I like that setup more than the first one that just throws a bunch of them at you. It feels more like a Sonic kind of platformer. I kind of like the hidden ones better.
I like the concept of it much better. I hate the implementation here.
Yeah, no,
so
I'm not
Nolan,
saying it was good implementation.
Nolan, you're a backtrack boy?
Sure. Always have been. But I'm not saying the implementation is good. I'm just saying
I think that's a rare trait. I would imagine most individuals would not like to walk back a full 5 minutes to the start of the stage just to get a red dot that they missed.
5 minutes is exaggerating.
Yeah, like, look, okay, here, I would say this. I don't mind a backtrack if the environment is worth exploring, if it gave you an incentive, if it was fun to discover and find where these creatively hidden dots were. Unfortunately, that happens, let me give it in a percentage, 0% of the time.
See, that's probably a little bit hyperbole. I do think there are a few places where level design here is clever, where I felt like I had to explore something.
Not at the beginning. I'll give you that.
What I found was like, oh, that's novel. Like I have to jump up on that thing and walk into a place that feels like I wouldn't normally walk, but it seems accessible when you can see it. Like I'm not nearly as cynical as you guys are about some of them, because some of them I actually think are kind of clever and fun.
No,
that's the puzzle one, like where you have to solve a puzzle or move certain things in the world around, that's kind of fun.
When it's obvious that you're supposed to do it, and in some places it is. In some places it's completely obtuse.
Yeah.
Or you're doing things in another screen and not knowing it's having an effect here, and it's not even showing it to you. And so you're having to do this blind 100% exploration where you're pushing every object, shooting every wall, walking into every blank space just in case there's a hidden door. And it feels not like exploration, but like, I don't know, like punishment to have to try and like pound your way through finding this thing.
The dungeon level in the horror movie, I believe it was the second stage in the horror film. That one, I think, was, if I had to pick one that I would call good level design, it would be that one, because it was larger, but had purpose to some of the puzzles and then some of the like rafting segments, and they're all on theme too. There's one that's like you're in the lights are turned off, and you're having to like find the spot in the dot, in that room. There are keys that open doors, and I don't know. I thought that area was actually entertaining when you're hunting, but I will agree with Dustin at the beginning of the game. All three actually are just whack. Like you have to play through that to get to what I'm talking about, and some people might not make it that far.
One of the things that's frustrating the later that you get, although maybe some of the puzzles get a little bit better, so that you're having to, be creative on how you discover the dots.
We don't have to do that,
No, we have to. The platforming expectations increase dramatically.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
So you are literally at certain points, 3, 4, 5 stages in, having to do these isometric platforming expectations that no mere mortal can hope to accomplish.
And even
they
if
feel
you
like
do it right,
they're almost right.
Yeah.
They feel like you almost have to be pixel perfect, and you don't. But the control scheme already is still wonky. It's at that weird 45 degrees, and you're going to revert to forgetting about it every once in a while and step off a cliff. And then they do things like making you make jumps that you can just barely make, or jump onto a platform that falls out from under you, so you got to jump and then jump, or jump onto something that you didn't know was there, but like somehow discover it by jumping into a blind empty spot. There's all kinds of things that are just like feel punishing for no reason or aren't like told to you. If there was a really obvious different visual on something that you're going to jump on to show you it's going to fall, sure, then like great. But when it just looks like every other piece of block and then you step on it and it happens to fall just because they wanted to do that, on top of all the other difficulty and stuff, no thank you, rude, you're just being a jerk to me.
They should have gone even lighter on the platform. Because, on the platforming, because it already kind of feels thrown together in that sense. Like, going through the stage, getting to the beginning, from the beginning to the end, it doesn't feel like this is first and foremost a platformer. It just felt like they were like, oh, yeah, you're supposed to have tight jumps in these kinds of games. Let's make it. And then it's, near impossible because of the view. Why is this isometric? We keep coming back to that. It should be a 2D platformer. Again, it should be.
I think it was Kenny, maybe it was Nolan, trying to make an excuse for them, saying that they were thinking ahead for the PlayStation and the.
I did say that, whatever. And that's probably true, which is stupid.
That's giving them too much credit. There are not. I mean, a different kind of credit. I just think they were trying to be innovative. It was the sequel, so they didn't want to do the same thing. So they were trying to do something different, which is laudable. But they went isometric, which is laughable.
It can work. It really can.
I don't know.
I think the charm of it can work, but I think the expectation that they put on the player in this is kind of silly with the tools that they gave you, with the control scheme that they gave you.
I don't know if we played an isometric platformer that works, and I don't think even the early 3D platforming is not ideal. Like, remember we played that Castlevania 64, and the platforming sections were that's fine. But the platforming sections is not where that game shines.
Great.
We've said a lot of very negative things about this game. Can I point out something that I thought was positive?
No.
Well, hold on.
Oh, I'm asking. You're right. I asked for permission.
Nolan, you said no?
I said no.
And I'll say yes. So, Kenny, you do the tiebreaker.
Okay.
He decides no.
Yeah.
He's like, you know what?
No, I'm good. No. The theming they were pretty consistent on. I didn't like. Sorry, I know I sound ridiculous.
You're doing really well.
I'm doing that. I'm trying not to cough. I've been sick this week, and I'm doing my best to sound professional. The theming they're at least consistent on. Pirate ship looks pirate shippy. The collectibles themselves are ridiculous. Like, they're weird.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah, like they're.
Why are they there?
It's like early PC games where they're just nonsense items
like
that make
shoe.
no sense. Yeah,
and there's no counter
laughable.
on the screen that is telling you that it's doing anything.
Right.
So it's just
you don't know that something super rare was worth 1,000,000 points.
Right.
There's a point counter at the end of the level, but it doesn't give you any reward for
absolutely asinine.
Okay, I was saying good things though, and sorry, I circled through
Cirque
a few
Soleil.
more bad things. I felt like the humor here was relatively well, like the tone was fine. Like, he walks around and he whistles and he's this spot and he's cool, and there's water on the deck of the ship that like sharks are swimming in, and it makes no sense, but it's kind of silly and sort of fun. And they tried at least to have a tone that matched the vibe of their character, and I appreciated that.
But does it match the tone and vibe of 7-Up?
Oh no, I think
thought
it does.
so.
I think
Yeah.
it speaks 7-Up.
I'm asking. I don't know anything about 7-Up.
Oh,
Heads
yeah,
up,
I think
7-Up.
it does.
I know
think
that.
it's
that's right in the lemon line, like quirkiness that I would expect from them.
Citrusy explosion that you would want.
Kenny's coughing and dying. I do agree with you then that's why I repented and apologized at the beginning, because I think like where this game character franchise thrives has to do with the character. They had someone creative and fun, silly but quirky but cool, and his idle animations, great. Some of the environments in and of themselves, creative. I don't think they filled those worlds well and to inspire you to want to explore, but I do like the designs of them, the quirkiness, the silliness of them.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I do agree, that's probably where it shines.
Same, and I would hang out with Spot.
Would he hang out
He
with
probably
you?
wouldn't hang out with me.
Yeah, that's
so
the thing. Let's talk about the bosses. I have referenced them, but and we don't have to go through all of them. The first one is that underwater sea creature with 2 hand arms,
What
and then
is
the
that
second one
thing?
is the pumpkin head. You got to watch the 7-Up anime to figure out that.
Oh, I'm behind on the lore.
The pumpkin head in the second one, while they have some fine designs graphically, they are abysmal bosses. Not only do they have the same repeatable single pattern over and over again, they are the biggest sponges in video game history.
yeah, they really are. I also got so annoyed with that first boss because there is a sound and visual cue that his attack that's different is going to happen.
He had a different
and I
attack?
did not feel...
Yeah.
No, I mean his main attack. The attack that he used. Like, I said different. There was one. But the like warning, like you're being attacked, but it didn't give you enough time. You could be holding run, and as soon as that thing triggered and you noticed it, you could hit forward. You're still getting hit by that thing. You've got to like be anticipating it. And anyhow, yeah, and then you have to hit them 11 million times.
The second boss is the pumpkin, and it simply jumps around the screen. That's all it does.
Yeah,
that's
all.
all.
When it lands, it shoots out poop.
Right. You just kite him and kite him and kite him, and
Fizzy,
that's definitely not what it's shooting.
Poop. And he cheats. He like knows where you're gonna go, and then he like teleports to you. And yes, they're sponges.
They're bad bosses. They're bad bosses.
They should have bosses.
Yes.
The setup they have with the 3 stages and the final one being like ending with the boss fight. I agree with that. Obviously, that works and makes sense in video games, but these should not have been in the game. They're just frustrating for no reason.
Or better designed, technically. Better designed, and I think that's fine. 2 things very quickly that I just think is a quality of life that we, over the former game, is, Kenny just mentioned it, but the run button. Yeah. There was not a dedicated run button in the first game. You just had to build up the momentum. And so that feels good and better.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
nice.
2, there's no timer. That would have been super antithetical to what they were trying to do in more of an exploration
They
stage.
couldn't have done it here. Or they would have had to make the threshold so high that it didn't really matter for it to be fair, because they literally want you to go everywhere and backtrack and explore and all of this thing. So it's good they removed it, but you're right. That is a key difference.
Yeah.
Aged.
The audio of this game is meme tier. And I'll say this. The cannons that fire in the pirate stage specifically are just straight up cartoon fart noises that they just used.
Listen, we're not turning into a scatological podcast. And we have been using that language so much lately.
It's so bad, painful, grating. The music on repeat is so noticeable here. That usually doesn't get to me. And the tracks are thematic and they work fine, but dude, they got old so quick.
You loved his jump sound, though, didn't you?
No, I loved no sounds about the game.
I was
It
going to
was
write
so
that down,
bad.
Kenny, because I don't know what the word is when you use a word to describe a sound. I forget what it's called, but
Like an onomatopoeia?
maybe. But your
You're gonna pee on
onomatopoeia
what?
of that noise was so wrong and off, and I was going to write down the correct one and bring it to
Okay,
the podcast.
well, what's the correct one?
Bring it to the podcast.
I don't know if I can do it without practice, but
Well, try.
yours
Just do it.
was wrong. No, I don't think that's what people came here to listen to.
I think that there's people
it.
absolutely out there right now who want to hear you do this.
I just think it's a boinga.
Well,
Boinga.
see,
Okay,
don't do it
that's
twice.
not that different from what I said.
It's just-
I think you were real different.
I said boingo, and I just didn't try hard and do the weird fake robot accent.
Yeah, I don't know why
Boinga.
we're trying to mimic this awful noise. The Genesis has a bad rap for having that audio chip, and yeah, it's bad. But
I would agree with you.
Some
and
games
that-
made it work, but this game didn't.
The sound effects
Yeah.
were the main
Yeah,
bad
they were
culprit
terrible.
here. The
Yeah.
music, I do agree, repetitive. I think the music pieces work for the environments and the stages, and that's
Right.
not what graded on me. It was definitely the sound effects of all of those things.
Yeah, and it's
Absolutely. Yeah, I just-
loud too. Like,
It is loud.
The
It is so
volume's cranked
unbalanced.
up for some reason. So I
Yeah,
had to
they
play
really
well.
wanted you to hear every single sound effect, and I agree. The music, forgettable, sometimes annoying, but not like egregious. But the sound effects were awful.
Was Light Crusader also Genesis, Nolan?
Yeah.
I'm starting to think your old console
No,
sucks.
stop it. I put that in the overview. I'm getting pissed off here. I'm frustrated with the Genesis polls lately because I feel like it's getting I think y'all are starting to form an opinion of it that's not real. We played the worst
sound
Genesis games of all time.
No,
Yes.
that's not true.
Yes,
You're
we-
right,
we
but
haven't
you are
played a
right
good
because
one.
we did play Sonic early on, so we have had a
Stop,
really
dude.
bad selection of
No,
Genesis,
the Genesis
games.
is sick, and those that get it, get it. There are some Genesis soundtracks that sound really good and made use of it, despite it being low tier hardware. But this game sounds crazy.
Dustin, you came around and said you realized that this character was cool, and I'm glad you did, because I agree he is. He's got a very sort of old school, kind of retro flavor of cool, though. Does he future-proof well?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
And the reason why I've given this some thought this week is because he's not referencing something specifically from his era. His vibe is specifically from that era, yes. But we played some games where the jokes are specifically like right in that era and that time. And I don't think that he does
those
that.
don't translate.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so either.
He's a dot.
Whoa.
Honestly, they
he's a
could-
spot.
He's a spot.
He's a circle. Are y'all really gonna sit here and defend this circle aging well and being cool in 2024?
He has
It's
arms, legs.
It's a great character.
That's awesome.
Feet,
They don't do the
hands.
things they should do with him. If you've got a circle that's flat and you don't do creative things taking advantage of that, where like he dodges enemies by laying down flat on the ground, or he like bridges gaps, or I don't know,
Here
seals
Kenny
something.
should be a developer.
Like,
developer
He's
Kenny.
fixing the
like
game.
they could have done so many cool things with this character.
Spot. I don't disagree because when you put your developer hat on, you cook. I do think that, look, they're working within their limitations, and I think graphically it served its purpose. With isometric, you get to show off a little bit more at times, than you do in others. And I think Spot's got his coolness. I think the environments have their coolness. The enemies look fine to, whatever. I think the technical issues are where this game in particular doesn't future-proof. Not just that it's isometric, but that it's isometric done poorly. From the platforming, which we've already talked about, to the collectathon, which is also not a great trope.
Right.
And
the
spread out
puzzles that aren't like the obtuse nature of the way things are hidden.
Yeah.
Hide things well, but be creative and give clues or show us that there's a reason to get there, or like you can't just do whatever they did.
But even hide things well. like they're not even doing that. They're just taking the easy way out sometimes, where like since it's isometric, you can have some environments that are not you can't see the other side of. Well, just putting a dot where you can't see is not hiding well, and they often did that. They didn't only do that, but they often did that. So I think most of the faults of this game are on the technical side of things, not the graphical, not even the audio, which we talked about some of the downfalls of that. But like even they didn't even take some of the like easy things. So in the Saturn and in the PlayStation versions, they added some kind of, I don't know if it was cutscenes or visual components that gave a little bit of the world. Yep. They could have given us a still in between the stages that moved us to the next one, but they don't give us anything.
Right. Even the story, you're kind of inferring. You probably got it from the booklet, and there's implications on the thing. But like,
no, y'all don't.
You could have done more.
Think about the year this came out and what it is. Y'all don't care about
no
that.
Excuse.
Stop. Yes.
No.
Excuse.
Stories are as old as humanity, and
no. How often do we get a platformer like this, and then we're like, "Why is there story? This is pointless. They're stupid. We don't need story for this."
Never.
That's this game.
I always
That's
need
this
story.
Game. We don't need it.
I'd like a little more here.
All they needed to do, look, if they had one splash screen up front that was setting up how Spot got onto the movie reel.
You would love this game.
No, but that would help in some areas. That's an easy thing to do, and they didn't even do that. That's what I'm saying. Are you defending this?
I'm about to defend something. We kind of brushed over graphics. I think the graphics are actually quite solid.
I said that.
It has the Genesis charm, and they didn't go overboard with anything. They kept things simple, and the different movie themes allowed them to be creative and have fun with the topic and like with the environments. And this game has mirror physics, okay?
When does he look in a mirror?
In the Haunted Mansion, there are mirrors, and they work. And later in the dungeon section, it's like storming and raining outside, and the lightning flashes outside, and like it effectively lights the room when it does that. There were a couple technical things that you're talking about, the technical side aging poorly, and I'll agree with the controls and with the other stuff, but graphically, I do think that they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, and I
agree.
That, yeah,
I agree. I think some of the artistic choices were, I don't know, it felt a little tropey or a little forced, but like all the individual elements looked really good. Looked good. I won't say really good, but yeah, I don't disagree.
We've mentioned that there is a Saturn version and a PlayStation version. Both came out in 1997. There are a few upgrades to the graphic or the music, but the handling and the isometric components are still the same, and from what I've gathered, maybe even worse to control on maybe on higher fidelity. But I also, and I don't know for sure, and I don't think we had the option, but I think at least on the PlayStation version that you're able to turn off the isometric handling of the D-pad and more free roam the D-pad.
Kenny's mad.
I don't. What if we had that option?
We might have.
That would fix 65% of my complaints with this game.
Ooh, you should have said 60, since that's the percentage that's expected to get the dots on each stage, but you didn't.
Only if you played on normal. I only had to do 40%.
Dang!
This boy played on easy!
That's very easy.
He still struggled. So, 7-Up is still purchasable in most stores today. What?
I never see it in
I heard
my
differently
life, in my world.
recently.
I don't see it.
Are they done? Have I not done my research?
No. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying like they need to get back on this type of marketing because I never see them.
Do y'all know what 7-Up was called before it was called 7-Up?
No.
I do not.
Bib label lithiated lemon lime soda.
Honestly, that's better.
If you if you want 7-Up, if you want Spot Goes to Hollywood for your Sega Genesis, you can get a copy for $15 used or loose, not bad, or $96 brand new.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. Nolan, what did you think about 7-Up's best mascot, Spot Goes to Hollywood? A sequel.
7-Up doesn't need a mascot, first of all. This game is painfully fine. That's all. The controls are terrible. Isometric platformer is a bad idea, but if you're gonna do it better than this. I don't really like it. I think that games that are essentially just ads for something are weird. That's why I took issue with the first game. But this one isn't really that anymore. It's just a continuation of the first ad without the soda. Don't play the game. Drink the drink if you must. Don't drink that. It's terrible for you. That's it.
I am going to say the same thing that I said at the end of Cool Spot episode, and it's that, and I've said it on many other platforming episodes as well. I'm a simple man. When it comes to platforming, I need one of two things in order to be hooked. I either need progression of abilities or progression of challenging level design. This game did not have either. You start the same spot as you end with, and the level design doesn't really add or change anything. The platforming becomes more and more difficult, but the platforming was difficult to begin with. But on top of that main component that I often talk about, this game is technically impoverished. Nolan said that this game is fine, and I believe that's what Nolan and I said about Cool Spot, and I stand by that. I think Cool Spot is a fine game. I think Spot Goes to Hollywood is an awful game. It is an awful, awful, awful game with stages and environments that are far too large, with far too few of the items, collectible items that you need, scattered way too obtusely. Every component of this game rubs against another component, creating a mess, an outright mess of a game. Spot Goes to Hollywood. If Cool Spot was a 5.5 or a 6 on the video game scale of cool, then Spot Goes to Hollywood would be a 2. It is a very unfun game to play. No New Game Plus status for me.
I probably live somewhere in between the two of you. Dustin, I do agree this is worse than the first one, though. The move to isometric was not a good call. So, yeah, unsurprisingly, it's a no from me. No New Game Plus. The Spot himself, the character, is cool, but the game isn't. It tried too hard on the wrong things and phoned it in on other things that it should have spent more time thinking about in development. Plus, the controls are just an absolute joke of a decision, and yeah, it's not like worst game we've ever played, but it is. If we were doing tier lists, this would be a high bad game category for me, or a low fine. But not gonna say it's fine. Not gonna say it's awful. Regardless, we all agree people shouldn't play this game.
Poor guy, because he's so cool. But it does mean that Spot Goes to Hollywood is not New Game Plus certified. But what did you think? Our YouTube poll says 20% yes, Spot Goes to Hollywood is worth playing today. 10% says no, go play something else. And 70% has never played the game before.
The 20% surprises me. The 70% doesn't. But that 20% is a little bit of a shocker.
You think the 20% are just 7-Up fans?
I sometimes think that, like, big business has its fingers deep into the retro gaming community.
Yeah.
And it's all conspiracies. And it's true. We proved it right here. 7-Up.
7-Up is paying us under the table.
Under the table, yeah.
With
not in money, apparently, but in
lemon lime
jokes.
Soda. Yeah, you might have noticed Nolan was unfortunately abducted by aliens, but we're going to march onward.
Yeah, he'll be back eventually.
Some of you wrote in this week. You played along with us and sent in your commentary. We will read a few of those. Shinobu Fujiko said, I went into this game not expecting it to be any good. At first, I felt correct. Until I kept playing. Once I figured out how things work, I found myself mostly enjoying the game, even nabbing a few retro achievements along the way. Graphically, the game looks nice and has charm. The music, while grating at first, grew on me. The biggest downsides for me were the controls and the fact that the enemies were sponges. Overall, it's not a bad game, and I found myself enjoying it the more I played. This is one I might pick up again once in a while, especially to try to nab more achievements.
Okay, Finobu, what'd you say his name was?
You're going to make me do it again? Shinobu Fujiko.
Okay, you nailed it. Yeah, I didn't want to say it that terribly. Drunk on 7-Up.
Okay. Fair. I do want to have a conversation briefly about retro achievements or just achievements in general. Nolan would love to be a part of this conversation. Rest in peace. Kenny, do achievements do anything for you, just in general?
Sometimes.
Okay.
It's very situational for me.
And achievements do something for me. I don't typically necessarily work towards them, but especially in Steam when they pop up, I like to shift tab to be able to actually read what the achievement was and see how many other people got that achievement. But if you're doing retro achievements, that's just in your head, right?
I don't know. Maybe there's a app or
I think it's in your head.
Piece of paper.
Yeah.
Or just like, I did good. You just patting yourself on the back. I don't know. I'm with you. I'm confused. Someone should enlighten us. But yeah, I think the achievement thing is an interesting conversation, but I don't know. It's not one we should have right now. Fully.
Please stop your sentences and then pick them right back up again. I love it.
I mean, I don't really think...
You're killing me.
That you would appreciate if I committed to the bit.
777 said the isometric view was a bit weird for this game, with the up arrow going diagonal and the platforms above other platforms. It was really disorienting at first. After a while, I figured out the controls and realized that the game itself, from level design to music, isn't half bad. Maybe not something worth playing today. It still is an interesting game. No NGP, although it was not as bad as I expected coming in.
The fact that they still got to know NGP means I'll give them the little bit of good they're giving it. And did you hear that? 45 degrees, right angle, diagonal. Push up is a diagonal.
No one's holding their controller like
who's right? Who was right this whole time? Confirmed.
Shane said 3D collectathon platformer, a genre I love from growing up in the N64 and PS1 era. Seeing one before that here was honestly pretty interesting. It, however, showed there was a good reason the genre didn't catch on until then. Isometric games are just awkward to platform in. Telling where you are is just a pain, and where you're going even harder. Not to mention your D-pad going diagonally up when you press up and such, just feeling awkward. A forgotten mascot in a genre before its time just isn't really a place for success. It seems no NGP from me.
Best set of comments. Everybody just continue sipping your 7-Up, and you're making my day.
Do you give 7-Up NGP?
I do. I give it 7 NGPs.
That's creative, Kenny.
Yeah.
And then finally, Hey Brother 45 said the bright colors and 16-bit style are actually charming and fill me with a bit of nostalgia. However, that's where the positives end. The game is set in an isometric pseudo 3D view. It commits the cardinal sin of not having a shadow to line yourself up when you jump, making any platforming beyond frustrating.
Didn't notice that, but it's a good call.
The controls are also a struggle, as they seem close to Resident Evil tank controls that are somehow reoriented along a completely different axis. If you overcome all this and beat the game and hate yourself enough to unlock the secret bonus level, you get the pride of knowing you spent all that time with an interactive ad. Absolutely no NGP from me.
I'm not opposed to the interactive ad thing if it's good.
Same.
I get why it bothers some people, but I'm like, if you want to push your stuff by giving us good content that's fun, I'll spend some time on it. Yeah. But the game is terrible, so everything else he said is valid.
I think that Spot does have a shadow, but I don't think that you're able to use it like you are in some of these other games. I don't really know, but
right. And some of the some of the things you're interacting with don't seem like they have obvious clues. That sometimes you can do other environmental kinds of things, shadows or whatever else to line up. The planks being straight lines on the ship did help me often to like kind of orient because it was nonsense.
Thank you for sending in your thoughts on the Retro Game of the Week. You can do that each and every week to ngppodcast at gmail.com or hop into our commentary channel. We'll try our best to feature your thoughts as a part of our upcoming episode. For now, we're going to set aside Spot Goes to Hollywood, but we are not randomly selecting from our Retro Master List because we've got something special around the pike. Guys, I don't know if y'all even remember, but for the first time in a long time, we have a guest episode.
Hey.
Has it been years?
It's at least been year, and it might have been years.
It's been a while. It doesn't feel that long because we've had director episodes.
It feels
and
long.
They feel guest-ish.
Yeah.
But still, it's super fun.
I'm pumped though.
So we are not randomly selecting like we typically do, but we're still randomly selecting. What do you mean, Dustin? Well, let me explain.
What do you mean, Dustin?
We have a guest that is joining us by the name of Brian Rigsby.
Brian Rigsby. Sick.
Brian is the owner, founder of Retro Game Books. Brian and Retro Game Books has been featured by Polygon and enjoyed by gaming veterans such as Jeremy Parrish. A few of the products that on the website, one known that you would find fascinating is a tome of Metroid pixel art from over 120 artists.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't that
Give
sound
me that.
amazing?
So
Give me
sick.
that.
There's another one that I think Kenny would respect. It's the Super Nintendo video game maps. It's just maps from some of the coolest. Isn't that sick?
But published well.
Yeah,
and
like blown
in
up, done
physical
really well.
book form.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, please.
One other that we would all, I don't know about but find fascinating that Brian and I guess his team spent the amount of time on. It's 160 pages of the complete history of Rygar. Do you remember that game?
Yes.
We played it on the podcast.
There are many pages worth of...
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
It was a fascinating game, if I remember. Just like reading about it when we played it.
The reason why we are still randomly selecting to some degree is because Brian gave us, a few games that he would be interested in talking with us about. And I asked him, hey, in the spirit of the show, can we randomly select from that list?
I like that.
So I'm going to tell you
he's going to be
games.
Surprised with us, at least to a degree.
Yeah.
When he finds out.
I'm going to tell you what games are going into the randomizer, okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Really?
Fun.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be fun for everybody, or disappointing for everybody. All right, so the games that are going into the randomizer are the following: WWF No Mercy.
I think that's good.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think I know that one.
Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest.
Yeah.
Castlevania 3.
Okay.
The Legend of Zelda.
Okay. Hey.
Have you heard of it?
I can't lose.
Shining Force 2.
What? I love that game too. What's going on?
You played that one?
Yes, I had it on PC.
And hopefully not this one. Zombies Ate My Neighbor. Too many zombies.
No, but that one's
We've
been
had so
looming.
many zombies.
That one's been looming for us.
Yeah.
We need to play it. What was the Zelda one? Sorry.
The Legend of Zelda.
Oh my gosh.
So we're not going to go wrong here?
One of my least favorite ones. All right, go ahead.
Actually, we'll go wrong with WWF. How about that?
I don't know. I don't like it.
From that list, randomly selecting now. We have played a game from this series before.
Yep.
Okay.
That could be
that barely narrows it down.
That barely takes
the
it
rules
down.
out wrestling.
No, because we've done wrestling
Not
games
WWF.
before.
I don't know. But it does rule out Zombies Ate My Neighbor.
And that.
But maintains the Castle games and the Zelda game and the Shining Force game.
Okay.
This game came out for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah, it rolls out 1.
This game came out in 1987.
Oh.
It is an action role-playing game developed and published by Konami. We played many in the series by this point in time, but which one is it? We are playing Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest.
Oh my goodness.
I've heard mixed things about Simon's Quest.
Yeah, which is going to be great. I love a controversial Castlevania game.
Yeah.
64 being one of them. This one is weird because it's very different than the first one. You're kind of it's more like Zelda 2. You remember Zelda 2?
There's platforming, but it's also got some role-playing and open
exploration
world elements.
Yes, it's going to be, there's like a town. It's going to be very different.
Kind of like Spot Goes to Hollywood.
Stop.
Not anything like that.
Find a copy of Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest and play it along with us and Brian Rigsby this next week.
Join us in Discord. You can go to discord.gg/newgameplus.
We want to say thank you to those of you who support us on patreon.com, including our newest patron this week, Onizuka, whose name I'm sure I pronounced correctly. Thank you for your support. I want to say a large thank you to our director-level supporters, Brojim, Super Hypered, Siegfried, and Scotty. You are the bubbles in our fizzy drink. And to our producer-level supporters.
Oh, good luck.
A big thank you as well. Let's see if I can get through this without completely coughing my lungs out, because it's a long list. But that's why we love our community. So thank you to Alex, Alias X, Amarlian, Antonin, Arlen, Yuki, Ben, Craig, Dustin's 5 o'clock Shadow, Garlisle, Guardian, Cade, Hallex, Harold, Hey Brother, Jay, Robert, Jake, Jordan, Joey, Justified, Justin, Clint, Levi, Marcus, Maxima, Megatroid, Miss Muso, Not Enough Dog, Retroman, Sagen, Sasser, Shane, Shauna, Snake Medic, Stephen Fox, Psycho Mantis, Tins, The Kentucky Kid, Thomas Turtle, Unbedavable, and Zion. Truly appreciate you.
You can find us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. The links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our episode artwork was created by Dave. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode edited and produced by Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. Until then, I'm still too large and too empty.
I'm still confused by what that means.
Yeah, I'm Nolan.
And this has been New Game Plus.